Hi, you're listening to Oh Crap with Jamie. This is a podcast for parents working hard to break the cycles while dropping the F-bomb a lot. I'm your host, Jamie Glowacki, and I am the author of Oh Crap Potty Training and Oh Crap I Have a Toddler. And I am so happy you're here. Hey, welcome. This is a potty training episode. So if you're here on this podcast for parenting, you can skip this or share this with somebody who might need it. And if you're here for potty training, welcome. Today, we are going to talk about fat, not fiber, hydration, overhydration, dehydration, and fruit. But first, if you are new to this podcast, this is Oh Crap with Jamie, and I used to have two podcasts, and I merged them. So one was Oh Crap Potty Training, and one was Oh Crap Parenting. They are now together as Oh Crap with Jamie. There is Oh Crap Potty Training, which has 95 episodes that lives on its own feed. So please go to that if you're looking for more potty training help. And then we will continue with potty training interspersed with parenting here on this podcast. And the reason I did that was to make it easier on me and my team, but also I found myself in every potty training podcast episode speaking about parenting because potty training does not happen in a vacuum. And so I was having to pull in more parenting stuff for potty training. So I wanted it to be easier for you. And of course, in the simplifying of things, it sounds very complicated, but it's not. All right. So here is a problem that is coming into play a lot recently, and it is fiber in children. And I've always been a proponent of upping a child's fat instead of fiber when they are struggling with constipation, nuggety poops, dry poops, nuggets that are formed together in a log, tritone, mucusy. Any of these poop problems are a gut issue usually. Okay. And when we're dealing with that, I always use fat, not fiber, to fix it. And I had gone down a fat rabbit hole when my son Pascal was little. He was 2 years old, just like any 2-year-old, would lick the butter off the bread. He would find butter. If it was on the counter, he'd grab little handfuls of it. I have seen videos of kids like grabbing the butter dish and running and hiding with it. Kids usually love butter. And so I was like, okay, butter, it's not like it's a sweet taste. Like, why would he be wanting it so much? So I went down a rabbit hole and found out that kids need and crave saturated fat. And so it's so good for them. It's a huge portion of breast milk. It helps with their brain development. It's responsible for their brain development. So you have to give your child saturated fat. And what I noticed is that his poops got like crazy good. So then I started eating just butter. And my poops got really good. And so I started recommending it to clients because I noticed over the years of doing this that people who tried to treat constipation and, supplement some withholding protocols with fiber, it ended up backfiring. And I used to think, I was like, okay, well, it's probably just because like kids can't drink enough water, right? Like if you or I take a fiber supplement or eat a lot of fiber, we know we need a lot of water to soak it up, to get it through our GI tract, and kids can't do that. So that's kind of what I thought for a long time. And then I really learned about digestion and kids and what happens with fiber in particular. So one big mistake is children, when they're little, are not just tiny adults. Their systems are different. So when babies are born, their gut lining is not sealed, which means they have leaky gut, which means bacteria, toxins, these things can go into the bloodstream, causing inflammation and immune responses. So that's one thing that happens. So their gut needs to be sealed and healed. They also have an immature microbiome. Their microbiome is new. So if you think about our microbiome, and we are just starting to scratch the surface of microbiome knowledge, we hardly know anything, but we do know that you are populating it at all times. We all are. And so little ones come into the world with some bacteria from mom, and a lot depends on, how mom ate during, when her child was in utero. Things that can affect it are, did you have a C-section or vaginal birth? Children get more bacteria from the vaginal birth, which is good. And they don't get that from C-section, which no comment at all on, I'm not trying to say one is better than the other. I'm glad you have a wonderful, healthy child. But C-section, you're not going to have that bacteria. So it's very important that you pay a little more attention to that. Same thing with breastfeeding versus formula. That is best. That's not an argument here. But a breastfed baby is going to get more bacteria from the mother that's beneficial for their microbiome than formula. And so again, it's just something to pay attention to. So their gut microbiome is being populated by bacteria. And these bacteria are alive. They eat, and they eat what we eat. But these bacteria, there's all strains of them, right? And that's why we do probiotics. But if you know me and have listened to the other episodes of potty training episodes, I don't recommend a broad spectrum probiotic because anything like that is going to feed the bacteria. But if there's an overgrowth or an imbalance, it's going to feed everything. So if you have candida, which is a yeast overgrowth, and you don't have something that's specifically trying to get rid of that bacteria or diminish that bacteria while building up the good bacteria, and you just have a broad spectrum probiotic, you're going to be feeding all of it, including the overgrowth. And so what happens with our little ones is we mistakenly for years thought rice was a good first food. It's not. And I think a lot of people know now that fat is a really good first food, but particularly saturated fat. So animal fat, so lard, tallow, butter, duck fat. These are all fatty meats. These are all excellent first foods. And along with meat broth, which will help seal and heal the gut lining, but it will also feed the right bacteria. Now, what happens is typically we all start kids on starchy foods. We do purees like sweet potatoes or fruit or maybe even vegetables, which aren't quite as starchy as like sweet potatoes, or rice cereal. And so what ends up happening is kids typically get a little imbalanced. And this, believe it or not, this is where a lot of picky eating stems from. Not all of it, but a lot of it stems from starchy foods that then start to feed that bacteria. When that bacteria is hungry, right, and it may not correlate to stomach hunger, it will cry out for the food it needs. So it will signal to the body, starch, more starch. When this happens, this can feel like you're dying. This can feel like you're in pain. This can feel like intense cravings. But if you're a little one, you wouldn't say, I'm craving. You would start selecting certain foods that feed that bacteria. So this is wild, right? So we want to, start first foods with animal fats and a lot of saturated fat and a little bit of protein, and stay away from those starchy foods for the most part while we're just starting with first foods. And any gut dietitian is going to tell you this. These are dietitians that specialize in healing the gut, which is sort of its own subset that a lot of people don't know about. So your standard dietitian might tell you X, Y, and Z, but gut healing is very different. And that usually means following something like the GAPS protocol or just using meat stocks and fat to heal the gut. It also helps balance the microbiome. So now when we take fiber is neither good nor bad. It's actually, it's neutral and it's not a nutrient. It feeds bacteria. That's why they recommend fiber, because it's feeding bacteria and that can be beneficial unless you have an imbalance or an overgrowth or gut dysbiosis. If your child struggles with constipation, chronic constipation, if your child struggles with like very odd poop, very weird poop, trouble pooping, and I'm not talking about withholding, that's different. I'm talking about more like funky looking poop, funky smelling poop, that signals a dysbiosis. So now when you add fiber to the mix, what you're adding is feeding the overgrowth. So your child already has a dysbiosis. We know that that's evident in the poop. So poop is always what we eat and how it's processed by the body. Always. So when it looks funky or it's not happening, we have to look at the gut. And so when you, again, feed it fiber, that fiber now does become bad for a person who has an overgrowth, a dysbiosis, or an imbalance, because it's going to feed the bad bacteria that is causing this dysbiosis. So that's why we don't want to use fiber. It also is very bloating. I just have seen time and time after again, these kids that I work with that are getting a lot of fiber, they have protruding bellies. And we've been convinced that kids need to eat the rainbow. That's not necessarily true in the early years, okay? We also have a real push for plant-based eating now. Whatever your beliefs are around that, children need saturated fat. Saturated fat comes from animals. And so that is my official stance. I have nothing against anyone who eats plant-based. I have worked with clients who are vegan, and um, kids were struggling with poop, couldn't really work with them. They were unwilling to use any animal products, and we couldn't really work together, because that is, your child will be on medicine forever if they're struggling with poop and we don't add in fats. It's not hitting the root cause, and the root cause is in the microbiome in the gut. It's not in my ideology. It's so I also have had clients who were on a vegan diet that specified like no oils, no fats, so just really heavy fruits and vegetables. And it, again, with no fat in a child's diet, you are literally depriving their brain of food that they need. So while your child might look fine for the moment, it is not at all healthy for the brain. So we can't say that our kids have the same system as us and that the same rules apply. And so I do see this like push, if you're on social media and you're a mom, so you're probably being pushed protein right now, right? Like eat your protein, probably some perimenopause content, some menopause content, which I talk about on the parenting episodes. But you're also probably seeing, eat your fiber, eat your fiber, eat your fiber. So then we think it's okay. We think it's one of those things like more is better, right? Because that's how our brains kind of work. Oh, if a little is good, more must be better. And so we're shoveling fiber into our kids, and it's backfiring. I'm not seeing it help with the constipation, and I'm seeing more gut dysbiosis, more bloating, a ton of gas. And this is like under x-rays. I've had several clients in the last month who got x-rays, had excessive gas, and this was the issue. So you have to pull it back. And really, 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 the nut butters don't have enough saturated fat. Avocados are great, but again, it's going to be butter, lard, tallow, anything you can cook in those. Fatty meats are just the best. Like that's all the nutrients your child would need. It really heals the gut, and you'll see less bloating, less gas, and much better poops. The other thing, again, with the gut bacteria is when it's out of balance, the gut brain axis is real. So the gut and the brain are connected in utero, and when the zygote's forming, and then everything starts to pull, right? Everything pulls away. That's why the gut and the brain kind of look similar. They've got these like soft tubes kind of looking, right? And so the gut brain axis is not woo woo. It's hard science. What we eat affects our mood. It affects our brain power. It affects our cognition. There is now a field of metabolic psychiatry. They are using food to cure all the symptoms of schizophrenia. It's powerful. Food is powerful. And so I really encourage you to step back and use fat, number one, but also we're in a rampant time where we're so busy, and convenience dictates like these a lot of highly processed snack foods, prepackaged stuff. And I know that it's become common to say like, oh yeah, just typical picky eating at 2, but we really want to push for these high fat nutrient dense foods, because of the microbiome, because that it's going to help your child with their mood. It's going to help with picky eating. It's going to keep them satiated. Fat regulates the nervous system. Fat is also responsible for saturated fat for producing and regulating hormones in women. So if you're new to this and this is your first episode, I just did 2 episodes on hormones and how I really think that having high saturated fat in my diet is what's regulating my hormones through menopause. So it's very, very, very beneficial for all things. And if you want your kid to be like calmer and, not quite so chaotic and have really good poops, that's going to be your answer. So fat, not fiber. And I find that it's just really hard right now. I have several clients who They want to, they're making appointments with gastroenterologists. They're willing to, supplement the child's diet. They're willing to, I have a couple of clients who are really down with stool testing, but but it doesn't matter. You can get all the fancy tests you want. You can get all the appointments you want, but what we eat has everything to do with how we poop, and it has everything to do with the gut and feeding the gut. Leaky gut can be caused by many things, but knowing that kids come into the world with a system not like ours. I also think it's really worth noting that the dietary guidelines, which I always take standard dietary guidelines with a grain of salt because I have had a very wildly different experience, but it's 5 plus the age of your child. So if your child's 3, it's +5. So that's 8 grams of fiber. That's how much they should have. And again, what I'm finding is, especially with people and plant-based diets, is the kids getting so much insoluble fiber, so much soluble fiber, that it's creating a lot of gas, a lot of poop, like really big poops that like fill that little potty insert. And it's not helping the situation. So that is what I will say about fiber, not fat. Okay, let's go into hydration, because this is another area where we are overdoing it. So, number one, a child needs a liter of fluids a day. That is including water content from food. So, that is everything. So, that's 33 ounces. Like, that's not a lot compared to what some people are using. Now, I have recently heard from a couple of clients that their pediatrician said, "Oh, don't worry about water. You can have as much as you want." And they have mentioned this because they're concerned that their child is drinking a lot. This is absolutely ludicrous advice. You can die from drinking too much water because you deplete your electrolytes. And people, these key words we see like a lot on Instagram, we see them on social media, electrolytes, element, they're being advertised or whatever. And so they start to lose meaning. Your electrolytes keep you alive. So my mom died last July, and the actual sort of reason she died is her potassium dipped so low and her heart stopped. So potassium, sodium, and magnesium are your electrolytes. And if you are drinking, or your child is drinking all day, all the time, not only are you going to struggle with potty training because they can't get a handle on their own signals, but you are depleting those important minerals, those electrolytes, sodium, potassium, and magnesium. Now, that low potassium contributes to leg cramping, to night terrors, to restless leg syndrome. Low magnesium. If your child's low in magnesium, they are going to struggle with constipation and not being able to poop. Magnesium helps relax everything. It keeps them, it's great at night. It helps with pooping. So a lot of these struggles we see, and I see with private clients, I'm like, oh, let's do a magnesium supplement. I don't believe in supplements. But your kid's drinking almost like half a gallon of water. That's a lot. So we have to help these kids out a little. And hydration is one of those things. It's the old George Carlin bit. I don't know if you ever saw him. Like, when did we all start carrying around water? And it's really true. I'm Gen X. I'm going to be 57 this year, and we ran around all day in the hot sun, sweating our asses off, and we would take a sip of water out of the garden hose once in a while, or run in and have a cup of water. We weren't walking around with water bottles, and really, people were not passing out of dehydration all the time. So this whole idea of water is being pushed by hydration companies. And I'm sure you've heard, by the time you're thirsty, you're dehydrated. That is a marketing campaign put out by Gatorade. So a really interesting book, I've mentioned this, but it was a long time ago, so I think it bears repeating, is Waterlogged by Dr. Tim Noakes. And he got hip to the fact that marathon runners were dropping dead after marathons, but only after about like 1975. Prior to that, people ran marathons, and nobody dropped dead. And then kind of suddenly people started to drop dead. And he was like, what the heck is going on? So he did a little bit of research and found out that prior to 1975, running a marathon was a rare thing. It was a big deal, and it was a rare thing. Nowadays, like, are you even a runner if you haven't done a marathon, right? Like we do them at the drop of a hat, or a lot of people do. I don't. I'm not running unless somebody's chasing me. That's a fact. So there were, the races were like impromptu. Well, they weren't impromptu because they had the Boston Marathon, but they weren't. televised. They weren't a huge event, and they probably weren't sponsored. They might have been sponsored by the city. Then they became popular, and companies started to sponsor them, and we started to have water stations and hydration, like water came on the scene. And what was happening is these marathon runners, from just, the heat, the sweat, and then drinking plain water, they were literally depleting all their minerals and dying a couple of hours after the marathon. So he started digging, like, well, how did this happen? And now we know that we carry water bottles everywhere, and God forbid you don't have Gatorade even at a kid's event, a sports event, right? And the reality is that was all a marketing campaign. Thirst is the indicator that you need to drink. It's not a sign of dehydration. So that's number one. Number two, when we're dealing with our little guys, there's usually sippy cups all over the place. I am against sippy cups because I think developmentally a lot is happening for our kids that is not happening for our kids that happened in past years, and it's affecting their gross motor skills by a lot. And one of those things is sippy cups. I'm holding a coffee cup. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see me. When we have an open cup, there is cause and effect. If we are careless with it, it spills. If we let go of it, the glass can break. If I'm not stopping and like sipping, consciously, and then swallowing and putting it down, with sippy cups, you can flop all over the place. The water goes wherever. And I'm talking even 360s, any cup that doesn't have a direct open lid where there's a cause and effect of water spilling or whatever. That's what kids need. They need that feedback, that biofeedback of real world things happening. You can't just fling a glass around. And they also need to sip, because sippy cups allow the child to take gulps of water. It allows the child to drink for comfort and not for thirst. So always go to a cup as soon as you can. Montessori has 6 months old drinking cups. So yes, there is going to be some mess in learning, but I think it's worth it to do this for our kids. I think it's worth it so that you get an accurate gauge of drinking to thirst and not to comfort. Also, when you're potty training, the problem with sippy cups is that, especially if there's like two-parent household, maybe a caregiver and daycare thrown into the mix, that's a lot of caregivers in the hydration pie. And so sippy cups get lost in the, they might have one in the car, they might have one at school, they might have one at the playground. And so I think it's far better to fill a liter jug, like a hydro flask or whatever, fill it in the morning, and all liquid comes from that flask. So, maybe you send a cup to school with the child, and that comes from that liter container. Child daycare nanny, maybe babysitter, is picking the child up from school, have them bring a cup from that container. So that way the whole family can keep track of the hydration, because I'm seeing people just overload their kids on water, and this makes night training difficult, and this can really impede potty training. Dehydration can happen, particularly if the child's been sick. So you do want to keep up on something like Pedialyte, electrolytes, Gatorade, Pedialyte, those are electrolytes. You can also get tons of different packets now that your child might like better. So those are really good for if your child's sick. And how we determine dehydration is, dehydration would look like lethargy. It would look like an addled brain. I suffered dehydration quite severely on a mountain trip a few years back, and it was a cascade of events, small events and small bad decisions that led up to dehydration. And I was like literally like losing my mind. So you would see like almost craziness, almost no cognition. And the first sign, of course, would be, very, very, very dark pee and edging on brownish. And so if you see that, yes, you want to push water. Yes, you want to push juice, whatever you can get into the child. But dehydration does not happen nearly as much as people will say. Okay. So the next thing is fruit. So I wanted to throw a bone to fruit, because fruit has two things. Fruit is sugar and fiber. It's glucose and there is fiber in it. And then, of course, the fiber slows down the glucose. So when I talk about sugar and fruit, I'm not talking about fruit not being good for you. I'm not talking about blood sugar. I'm talking about how it feeds that microbiome. I am also talking about how it has the fiber in it, which can again feed the microbiome along with the sugar. So that's a double whammy on feeding two bacteria. And people tend to think, I've been working with a lot of clients well, over the years, this has been true, that fruit is like a quote unquote free food and you can have as much fruit as you want. That's not really true. And kids really need, under 5, kids need a half a cup of fruit a day. That's like a half a cup. So if you think about what your kid is eating, a lot of parents are like, oh my God, that my kid has like 6 cups of fruit. So it's not a free food. And if you are seeing, if you're giving your kid a ton of fruit and you are just seeing effortless, easy pooping, not too hard, not too soft, you're seeing amazing behavior, you're seeing no problems whatsoever, then don't change anything. But if you're seeing volatility, listen, toddlers are chaotic by nature. They're going to be because they don't have prefrontal cortex. There's no long-term thinking or judgment. They're new in their skin. They're going to test boundaries. They're testing their own limits. They're going to be chaotic. We are reaching epic proportions of volatile, crazy toddler behavior. And I really think it comes down to the gut microbiome and what we're feeding it. And these kids, some of these kids, I think their brains are on fire from inflammation. I think their stomach and GI systems are a mess because of the microbiome. I think the gut brain axis is spinning out of control because of, again, what the bacteria is being fed. And so approach fruit carefully. It's not like a free food. And I know a lot of parents will say, like, it's better than candy, it's better than junk. Yeah, of course it is. But like, are you going to feed your kid that much candy as much as you feed it, them fruit? So just it's worth caution. I know it's a bitter pill to swallow, but I see more problems with excess fruit than I do with just about anything else, and fiber. So just keep that in mind, that if your child is, we have a snacking culture right now that's out of control. Kids are constantly hungry. Not snacking. Some of it's boredom. Some of it's the culture we've created, but some of it is that bacteria that's responding to all the starch and fiber and sugar is saying, give me more, give me more, give me more, give me more. So if you have a kid who just endless snacking, we used not, and I'm not waxing nostalgic, like, oh, Gen X, we had it so different. I'm not doing that, but we really did. We went all day and we ate 3 meals. Maybe we'd have a snack after school, but like it'd be like an apple or something. It wasn't crazy. And we ate at dinner. I never had like picky eating was never a thing the way it is now. And so you got to kind of look back and go like, what was different? You know what I mean? And the food was drastically different, but we didn't snack. And so excessive snacking really is a sign of that bacteria crying out to be fed. And if you've ever done like a sugar detox, you know the power of sugar. When I say sugar, I mean starches, carbohydrates. They all break down into the same thing. And so that's what's feeding that bacteria. But you can have these symptoms of like, I don't know, I've done detox. I don't really eat sugar anymore, but like when you go off of it, you can be weepy, you can be emotional and volatile, and like there's some real withdrawal. And it's not necessarily like the sugar. It's not the point of the sugar. It's that bacteria being like, feed me, I'm hungry. And that's what messes with your brain. So it's something to consider. If your child is snacky, their behavior is wonky, they're struggling with poop, I am always astounded when I work with parents that they want to kind of address everything else. They don't want their kids on meds or anything like that, but they're unwilling to change the diet because we bought into this idea that picky eating is just a thing. I know there's severe cases. I know there's sensory issues. I know there's ARFID. I know there are severe things, but the way picky eating is so rampant now, I can't believe we're not looking at how it astounds me that we don't look at how we got here. Like everybody just assumes this is the way it was. When I started this work, there were 2 feeding clinics for picky eating. And this was like kids who would literally starve themselves. 2 clinics. And one was in Cleveland Children's Hospital, and one was at Boston Children's Hospital. That's it. There are now feeding clinics in every major children's hospital across the US. There's like a 2-year waiting list to get into these. It's insane. So something happened. And I am astounded that we've just come to view it as like, oh, this is just a thing that happens, and maybe people don't know the scope, but this is like crazy, because for that many feeding clinics, for that many kids to be struggling with eating, which is like our most fundamental need, right? So I think it's really worth, digging a little deeper. If you guys want me to address anything a little more deeper, I'd love to. I do recommend, if you are struggling with this and would like a really amazing healing protocol, I always suggest Kate Pope. She's on Instagram at Wild Nutritionist. Her program, she has a gut microbiome program that is astounding. I've seen it. It's just so beneficial for skin conditions, constipation, behavior issues, picky eating. She's a miracle worker. Again, that's Kate Pope at Wild Nutritionist on Instagram. And she, it, it's really worth it. And she starts slow. She's not like super aggressive with the changes that you need to make. So anyway, thanks for listening. And as always, I appreciate it, and rate and review this podcast if you are so inclined. It always helps to be seen. And as always, I appreciate you. Rock on.
Okay, bye everyone. Just a reminder, if you need additional resources, I have Oh Crap Potty Training. I have Oh Crap, I Have a Toddler. Those books are available everywhere you want to find a book. You can also go to my website, jamieglowacki.com, where you can book private sessions with me, buy any of my courses. Those are really geared towards potty training help. And also I'm on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook anymore, and I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, jamie.glowacki, and I do a lot of lives and usually posting a lot of good information. So those are extra resources for you. And as always, rock on. Have an awesome day.